Call this public hearing to order at 7:02. Could I please get a roll call?
Yes. Katie Newsom.
Here.
Paula Kane.
Absent.
Absent. Oh, sorry. Mark Sherwood.
Here.
Kim McCormick.
Here.
Bree Woodworth.
She is also absent.
Jack Sapia.
Hello.
Don Woodworth. Alyssa Kwalsik.
Here.
And I think that's it. Oh, Shauna Manthan,
Here.
I'm sorry.
All right, if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get into this, I'm going to give everybody some ground rules. We will be doing a 3-minute per speaker. We will be timing. I'm going to have Mr. Sherwood and Ms. Manthorn be my timers this evening. You'll hear a ding go off whenever the time is expired. Only questions related to this warrant article. If you come up and you speak, if there's other people behind you who have not spoken yet, they will be given a turn before you are allowed to speak again. So this is warrant article 3. Could I go to the next slide, please? Who has the little clicker?
I'm quite sorry. That would be me. And
Maybe.
it's coming. Hold on.
Oh, there it is. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go over it again, and then I'm going to have a member from the board to just give a little justification on it. So Article 3, Amendment to Articles of Agreement. To see if the school district will vote to amend the Articles of Agreement of the Timberlane Regional School District as follows. Effective July 1st to 2027, the Timberlane Regional School District shall be responsible for the public education of pupils in kindergarten through grade 12. Pupils in the pre-existing districts shall be assigned by the regional board to attend the elementary schools in the pre-existing districts in which they reside for no less than the first 5 years of formal schooling. Resident parents or guardians may voluntarily request that their elementary students be assigned to another in-district public elementary school on an annual basis as long as seats are available and that no additional cost, transportation, etc., be incurred by the school district. The regional school board may assign pupils to a school other than one in the pre-existing district in which they reside for the purpose of special education not available in the pre-existing district. Grades 6 through 12 may be maintained in central schools within the cooperative district. And then the change to paragraph 12, the Timberlane Regional School District shall provide transportation for all pupils in kindergarten through grade 12 to the schools within the district consistent with provisions of RSA 189:8, except that until the Timberlane Regional Junior Senior High School is operative, present regulations pertaining to high school transportation shall apply, and any cost the regional school district for this transportation shall be charged to the pre-existing district in which the student resides who incur this expense. This is a 2/3 majority vote required. It is recommended by the school board 8-0-0. Does anybody on the board like to have a few words about this? Go ahead, Ms. McCormick.
Hello. Okay, sorry. So I just wanted to say some of my justifications for bringing this forward. I was on the ad hoc committee for kindergarten, and for several months we talked to our kindergarten and first grade teachers all throughout the district. And one of the common themes that we were hearing were that a lot of the children that were in half-day kindergarten, they were not, they didn't get the same kind of, what's the word? They didn't, the rigor that the other students who had full day got to have. The kids who are in full day kindergarten, they got to have specials, they got to have recess time, they got to have more time with their peers. The children who were in half day, they spent a lot of time trying to work everything in the learning part. And yes, they did, you know, we have great teachers, so they got a great education. But the bottom line was, if you have an extra $450 a month, then your kid can get the extended day kindergarten, the full day to kindergarten. But if you don't, then they can't. And that feels really wrong to me. So that's a lot of the reason that I think that this is the right time to do this. We have the teachers in place, we have the facilities in place. This is the time that we need to change our Articles of Agreement to include kindergarten, full day, tuition-free kindergarten.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick. Any other member want to speak? Yep, go ahead, Mark.
It's on.
Just piggybacking.
Keep talking.
Just to piggyback on what Kim had said, so the data's out there. It's fairly compelling that there are real advantages, both social, economic, and scholastic for kids that attend the full day, and that's not even touching on some of the advantages to the working and younger parents who cannot afford to, I won't say give their child the advantage that other children don't, because quite frankly, it's almost a little bit embarrassing that there are only 4 other districts in the entire state that do not have it. And there's a reason for that. And it's not because New Hampshire is known as being very generous with its educational dollars, where statewide we are last in the entire nation, so we're known as being rather frugal, yet we are one of the last districts in the state to do that because the evidence is compelling. If we want to stay even, never mind competitively advantaged over our peers around here and provide that to our kids, this is a stepping stone for it. And there are some financial advantages as well with being able to identify potential challenges that these kids will face throughout their academic careers earlier rather than later.
Thank you. Any other members? Yep, Mr. Woodworth?
Yeah, I come from
You want to pull up the mic?
I come from an area where, 65 years ago, when I was in kindergarten, it was full-time free kindergarten. When I moved to Timberlane in 1980, I was shocked to find out that I was going to have to be putting my son through, private kindergarten, because I was so accustomed to having that be an automatic. But I realize not every state has progressed at the same rate towards this. But right now, in that same area I'm from, they're talking about, not talking about, but they're having preschool that's full-time. What I'm really looking at for, personally about this is equity, fairness, giving every kid an equal shot at having a robust education, being able to participate early and well in first grade, second grade, and third grade. And I feel like we spend a lot of time trying to catch kids up that are unnecessarily behind because we have let this happen over time. In our state, we are behind about 90% of the schools in the state in terms of the start that we give them. That's a choice. And for about $300,000 difference in the budget next year, we could have that choice evened out. Because that's really what the difference is when you take into effect the impact that it will have where the increases are in terms of personnel. But everything else already exists in place for us. And I know that there is going to be talk about what it costs per child in the district. But not all kids cost the district the same amount in reality. We have a student that will cost $200,000 because of their special needs, and we'll have others that cost significantly less than the average because, the programs they have, they fit in nice and neatly without any extra needs, or their transportation is less. Not all students, in actuality, cost us the average amount. And so what we're looking at is the difference of how many students, less than 50 students, that are going to be taking kindergarten full-time instead of part-time because we recognize that it's fair to them. I think it's a no-brainer when all things are considered.
Thank you, Don. Jack, and then I'm going to move on to Dr. Martin for financials.
I was originally against full-time kindergarten for a number of reasons. One, the economic conditions around the district, actually the country. But listening to this, listening to the arguments, keeping an open mind, I began to realize the potential savings on the backside of this. I also considered the struggle of a student early on, if we can have if they had more face time and more interaction with teachers and with students, the benefits of that. And I've had a number of discussions around the community about this, and someone said to me, wow, there's plenty of money, everyone's got money. Do we all forget what it was like having young children and starting out? I don't know anyone that started out with a golden spoon in their hand around here, in their mouths around here. So I look back to when my kids were that age and the struggles that we had It was hard getting a mortgage. And spending an extra $400 a month would have just killed us. So for me, it's not so much the equity issue as it is how we can help children. And I know people are struggling, but everyone walks in here and says, we're all for a solid education. Well, if you're for a solid education, support this, like I am. And if the difference is $300,000, then I think there's ways of working that out so there's no impact to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. And speaking of financials and that $300,000, I'm now going to talk over to Dr. Martin to speak finances.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And turn the slide, Chris. Okay. How am I doing? Not so good. Whoop, I'm going backwards. Story of my life. There it is, okay. Just also, before I give you this is an exercise that we did, okay? This financial exercise, because it was asked of us to put some dollars to this as an idea. Please remember that the warrant, however, this is a no-cost warrant. This is about the Articles of Agreement, one step at a time. And following that decision, where the dollars are coming from and how much we'll have a more accurate assessment. Currently, if we use the FY25 operating budget as an example, we have 13.5 full-time kindergarten teachers at a cost of $1.356540 million. Our current transportation contract is $2.7 million. And included in what we refer to as the $20,000, this figure was quoted as well at the last meeting, facilities, CIP, capital improvement, repairs and maintenance, and staff and classroom materials, all inclusive in that number. We can go on. I think. There we go. So if we look at our actuals from FY24 and the tuition revenue that was generated from FY24, and remember that there are some families that are on a sliding scale or do not pay at all for certain reasons. You can see the actuals written right there. So if in fact, again, using this as an exercise, we were to calculate that, there would be a loss of revenue of $709,000 and $709,238,000. If in fact we were to bring on full-day kindergarten, we would have the additional revenue per student. This is base adequacy now, remember, of $2,132.82 per student. There is this magic number of, in order for us to achieve that, we have to have 189 enrollees. There is no logic surrounding that. That is simply a number that was issued to us to calculate this from the DOE at a revenue calculation of $403,102.98. So as Committeewoman Woodward already said, if we take the cost of tuition, if we take the cost of tuition minus the adequacy figure, the loss or the cost of this article going forward would be $306,000 plus. I would say I'll have a short editorial statement in saying I did this in my school district, the previous school district before I arrived here, and almost 20 years ago in the Manchester School District, my other district, we went from offering just half-day to full-day kindergarten, and there were many of the same kinds of trepidations as some of you have experienced, and it has become a very positive aspect in the lives of children and families.
All right. Thank you all for your comments and the presentation. I will now open it up to public comment. When you come up to the microphone, please state your name and your town so that our recording secretary can have it down correctly.
John Downing, Sandown, New Hampshire. I'd like to start off the night on a good night. and just say that no one is above, is against educating the students. We all understand they have benefits. If they're in kindergarten, they're probably going to do better. We're not here to decide that from the public tonight. We're here just stating the policy in which it's being done. So the school board approves this warrant article and recommends it 8-0. I ask this entire panel, what does the BudCom say about this?
The BugCom did not vote on it.
Why?
They just didn't at their meeting.
Because there's no money attached to the warrant article.
It's not a cost warrant article. It
Okay.
doesn't have a dollar figure attached to it.
Okay, but this is for a warrant article to start kindergarten next year.
Correct, but it's only to change the articles of agreement. Now, if it stated this warrant article and it had articles of agreement and then it had the $300,000 attached to it, then yes, they would vote on it at that point, but they don't, but it doesn't.
Is this warrant article stating no cost, circumventing the approval of the BudCom in the scrutiny of financials and what it's going to cost the district?
If I may, just to realize that we will not be starting full-day kindergarten in the upcoming fall. We would have an entire year to prepare for full-day kindergarten. And the board would need to decide where that money's coming from. Are we going to absorb it in the operating budget? Will there be another warrant in the next budget cycle? The financials would come in the next budget cycle.
All due respect, we need to call a spade a spade. This will cost money, and by not informing the voters of the cost, the financial impact on this article of agreement, which is circumventing the BudCom scrutinizing financials, it's disingenuous and it's not okay to the voters. We need a number to vote informative and responsibly.
It's absolutely going to cost money, and we just stated that approximately $300,000. I get it, it's not on the warrant article.
We'll get into how much it really costs.
Jack, did you want to say something?
Be right or wrong on this, but, you know, there's always this spin of some nefarious undermining of some. Boards and budget committees don't necessarily have to vote on warrant articles as far back as I can remember. There is nothing that says that they have to. If the budget committee chose to advise to or not to, I'm perfectly fine with that. I have no problem with that. And to suggest, I mean, and they'll have another opportunity right after the deliberative session finishes to vote or not to vote. That is up to them. And when you get up here and you accuse people of nefarious acts, you should maybe understand how the process works. Thank you. I'm not talking to you, Mrs. Lowe's.
Nope. We're going to direct it through the chair. Next.
Atkinson?
No, you can't, because you've already spoke once. And it's Mr. Brashear.
All right. To quickly answer his question.
First, please state your name and your town, I'm sorry.
Michael Boucher, Atkinson. So to quickly address his comment about the actual cost to voters, if you vote no, is $700,000. We just saw it on the slides. One of the questions that I did have to ask was actually in regards to the adequacy aids. It was based off of 189 students. If I remember correctly, the district can have a maximum of 300 students. Can anyone corroborate that?
Yep.
That's correct. I think the ad hoc committee reported out that currently in the operating budget, there is facilities that could field and accommodate 300 maximum students. We currently enroll about 230.
Okay, so with that in mind, could the adequacy aid be calculated in such a way that it included, or it was processed with 300 students, and how would that look, and what would that change the numbers?
We could certainly project that through. The reason we're using 189 now as adequacy is paid in arrears. And as we were looking at if we were going to use these numbers to project, we were reaching to the DOE. And as they got into their internal reporting records in terms of what we report out beginning of the year enrollment, we are told 189 students would qualify for that adequacy payment moving forward. It's a conservative estimate, but that's what we wanted to do in terms of reporting back to the board where a cost may stand.
And how did they determine that those 189 students were eligible?
My understanding is it is around the services that those students may receive and whether any of the tuition may or may not be waived for them getting into the current programming that exists in Timberlane.
Okay, so these students may qualify because of services they may have in need. Do those services have a cost to the district? And if so, is that covered by any other forms of funding?
If you're referring to special education costs, yes, there's an obligation on behalf of the district. The district is actually obligated to go out and child find for students beginning at age 3. Kindergarten is not age 3, it's certainly more beyond that developmental age. But if we have knowledge of a student who's identified with need of services, then we're obligated to provide those services, whether that student's attending kindergarten with us or not. It's certainly more cost-effective to invite them in to a program that exists and to deliver those services concentrated on site, excuse me, Michael, than it would be to deliver services out in the community where they may be attending a private kindergarten setting.
So, I mean, you're almost implying that there's sort of a savings right there where you don't have to actually take the effort to identify students if they're already enrolled, potentially.
Potentially, and I think beyond that, we would want to be having those students as part of our home education basis here with our staff and in our communities.
Okay. In terms of, and I know I just threw out different numbers of like students, if you were to approach the maximum number of students, like 300 students, would that cost the district more in terms of extracurriculars like art, music, et cetera?
No, we'd be able to accommodate those students. When we get to 300, there may be an additional staff that we would need to look at adding.
Okay.
That's your time for now, sir, sorry. All right, next.
Sheila Lowe's, Sandown, New Hampshire. I'm going to question the ad hoc committee first.
Okay.
When you did your committee meetings and all that good stuff, did you guys do any of the financials, or did you just go around and visit with people and talk and hold your meetings and all that?
Initially, I'll speak for myself, it was to see if the juice was potentially worth
If
the
there was an
squeeze
appetite.
without knowing exactly what the juice was. So
Yeah, if
for
there was an
my-
appetite, I understand.
For my part, it was doing research to see what the advantages and disadvantages were. I have a family member who is involved in early education, and they have reported, especially recently, the kids are coming in so much less prepared than they were. And from there are some major stakeholders, right? It's the taxpayers, it's the parents, it's the kids.
I'm
it's
just
the-
asking if you did the financials. That's what I was asking, if you did anything financial-wise in your meetings.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so can you tell me what is the state average for a kindergartner in New Hampshire, money-wise? Anybody have that number? Because I have it, if you need it.
It's $18,000.
It certainly is. That's the average in New Hampshire. Cost per pupil, like Woody said, we're going to do what the budget is this year, 91 million, divided by the number of kids that were in the state. Our math comes out to about 29.
91 million?
With this year, right? We're in this year?
I'm just wondering where you got that from, monies expended, or I'm just trying to follow along here, Sheila.
I'm going by the budget number that we're in this year,
Okay.
because that's all I have. I don't have next year's budget number. So I'm going by this year. Okay? So going back to your slides, my next question is this. We know we lose $700,000 in tuition. We know that. We also know that we already get $2,100 in from the state. No?
Not right now. You get
Half-day kindergarten is paid at what?
Half adequacy.
Correct. Is that 2,100?
Yes, just about.
Thank you. So we're getting 2,100 per kindergarten child right now, whether they're full-time or part-time. So we also talked about a grant in the first year. Does that number, that 403, represent the grant number?
Good question.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So what we're saying is, after the first year, we drop down to the 2,100. And I'm going to even question if we get the grant money the way things are going in Washington right now, to be honest.
Clarification?
The non-competitive grant in its first year, the purpose of that grant is to get into the second year of operations when you're looking back in arrears to pay adequacy. And then from that second year on, the kindergarten students receiving full adequacy. They're made whole by the state and by the second year.
So an extra 2,100. and that was time.
So we will get exactly what we're getting for every other student we have in the district?
Correct.
Correct, okay. My time's up, I'll be back.
Thank you.
And if I may clarify one other issue, remember that when we talk about cost per pupil, we're talking about the building, we're talking, right, all of those things. So the building already exists, the classrooms already exist. So those aren't additional costs for adding full-day kindergarten. Okay, very good, thank you.
Next speaker.
Yes, so, well, Michael Boucher Atkinson. So I think Sheila and I are actually kind of on the same wavelength, maybe in a different perspective, but I was actually trying to get to the point of narrowing the cost, right? So the last time I was up here, I was talking about the cost for extracurricular teachers for like math, music, et cetera. You were saying those costs would exist regardless of how many students we have, whether it's 189, 200, 230, or 300, right? So these are costs that are already being incurred by the district, just like the transportation costs, just like Ms. Martin said with facilities costs. So realistically, the only figures that we're looking at that's being really debated, in my opinion, would be the 700,000 and the 300,000, because really everything else is already covered. It's already been happening within the district based on the current articles of agreement.
Correct. So if you have a class of 10 kids and you add 2 more kids, it does not add 20% of the cost? That's where you're trying to get to?
Correct.
Yeah.
Jack.
Oh, hello. So in the business that I'm in, I do a lot of logistics. I ship by rail, I ship by truck, I ship by cross dock. And the last thing you want to do is ship a half of a load of anything. So if you kind of can make a correlation with that, the best efficient way is to fill the truck out, to fill the rail car out. It costs no more, because you're talking about a fixed cost, right? And it's kind of the same way with a classroom. If the classroom is half empty, in my mind, all that is lost opportunity. It's with no additional cost incurred by the district. So I think maybe that's a different way of looking at it. It's kind of the way I look at it is, if we have a couple empty seats in that classroom, let's fill them. Let's give those students the benefit of being there all day long. Just a thought, a perspective.
All right, I agree with that. Good.
Yep, go ahead.
Marion Springer, Danville. My first question is, I attended a school board meeting in December, and full-time kindergarten was discussed, and there was one additional FTE that was going to be needed, and there is no longer any talk about that, what happened in the last month.
So if I may address that, we use the calculation of FY25 budget and the FY24 actuals as this is an exercise, okay? Between now and the time that we actually implement full-day kindergarten, and you can tell I'm positive and passionate because I'm hoping that in fact it happens, there may be staffing, fluctuations in staffing where we can actually absorb a full-time FTE. This is what happens in school districts, that staffing fluctuates tremendously because our enrollment fluctuates.
Okay, I'm still not sure why it was definitively stated in December that an additional FTE was required, and now it's no longer being definitively stated.
So it's a combination of NASDAQ numbers, the numbers we were looking at enrollment, the original number that I may have said it, or Kim may, or somebody else in the committee. We were just kind of trying to get into the financials at that stage in looking at projections and looking at turning, if memory serves, it was 2 part-times into a full-time, or a part-time and then a full-time. However, with the way the student populations are, there will probably be a shift in needed personnel at the different class levels, and that's how that analysis came.
Okay. I've heard the term NASDAQ projections. What is NASDAQ, and where are those projections?
So I can speak to that if that's okay. So many school districts in New Hampshire, actually in the New England area, subscribe to a NASDAQ enrollment subscription where they actually look at birth rates in a community, death rates in a community. It's fascinating to see. And in Most cases, they are very, very close to the actual enrollment. I've seen it happen in many different districts. New England,
Somebody's families.
yeah.
Call me tomorrow and I'll let you know, okay,
Yeah,
Marianne?
sorry. It's also a company that does superintendent searches, and they're very engaged in the data surrounding districts in New England in general.
Okay. And I believe, Dr. Martin, you mentioned that some students who take full-day kindergarten now are on a sliding scale or do not pay. Do we have any estimate of how many of our part-time kindergartners now would go full-time if not for cost?
I do not believe that data exists currently, and again, we've provided you with an exercise based on data that we're certain of. We have not pursued that.
Okay, as I agree a little bit with Mr. Downing about the idea that this warrant article is being presented to voters without any indication of it's going to cost something. And we don't know how much, and I realize it's a year out, and those numbers are hard to get. But we also don't know how big a problem is this, really? Is it a financial burden to families in our district to have to pay tuition if there's sliding scales, perhaps no cost, and maybe it's a choice as opposed to a financial necessity?
Kim?
When we did speak with a lot of the teachers throughout the district, a lot of the feedback we got was we had kids signed up for full day, and then I shouldn't say a lot, there were children that were signed up for full day that at the very last minute they backed out and had to do half day because their financial situation wasn't where they wanted it to be, and they couldn't afford the $450, which is really kind of why I'm kind of stuck on that, because they wanted that for their kid, and their financial situation didn't allow for it. So we heard that more than once in our committee. And I also want to remind you that we have kindergarten in our school district, and this warrant article is to have our articles of agreement true up to what we're already doing. We have kindergarten, so we need it to say that we are educating our children.
But this articles of agreement change will mandate full-day kindergarten in Timberlane, which is not currently the situation, paid for by the taxpayers.
Correct.
That's correct, but if you look at the money that we're showing you right now, we're paying for the children who are in kindergarten right now.
Well, I don't exactly know how to undo that, but
I hope to God that nobody even
and I'm not
says those words.
I'm not advocating for that, but this article of agreement change isn't to address the status quo, it's to go a step beyond what we're doing.
Correct. That's exactly the intention, and that's why we're kind of brought it to the public. There seemed to be a need. There was a lot of interest in the community, so we formed an ad hoc committee trying to, I won't say reinvent the wheel because we're the only ones who are still walking. Everybody else in the state seems to, figured out the wheel. But to try to figure out our path through it. Admittedly, there were some stumbles of which I was a part of early on as well. The evidence, from my perspective, is compelling. The juice certainly is worth the squeeze. It is changing. So currently we do provide half-day. This would be codifying that we are willing, and we see the benefits of providing full-day K like just about every other school in the nation. That's right.
So why does the warrant article not start until July of 2027?
Timing.
So, and I'll speak to that. In my previous experience, we wanted to give our teachers an opportunity. I think it's important to plan for this new experience for children that are in half-day kindergarten. And we also want to give our administrative staff the opportunity to plan thoroughly for the arrival of our babies for a full day.
I would understand that if we didn't already have many students in full-day kindergarten, but it's not a new curriculum, it's not a new concept. The classrooms are there, the teachers are there, so I don't see it as being as major a change as you're describing.
Thank you. I'm going to let Mr. Krieger have closing statement. Unfortunately, the timer bell did not go off. I'm sorry, dear.
It did, we just all talked through it.
Mary Ann, just two last things I'd leave you with. In terms of your question around the cost for this, I know the board's been clear, it's looked at fiscal '27 in terms of implementation. In my engagement with the legal counsel, the interpretation was the best way to be transparent with the voters was to provide real numbers, and to do that in one of two ways, either through the budget cycle next year on the operating budget, and to put that in front of voters and allow them to make those decisions, or to put the cost in a warrant article where it'd be 1 year closer to implementation and we have a little bit more of a real number. I think those are two transparent things that we're feeling comfortable with on this end.
Thank you.
Next.
Justin, you seem to miss part of that picture. You're asking us to vote in full-time kindergarten, which says we pay for it. Then you're saying next year you're going to give us a warrant article on how much it's going to cost. Doesn't matter if we vote it down. We've already said we're paying for it. You can't have that both ways. Because that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying the articles of agreement are going to change. We're going to start doing kindergarten to 12. Then the next year you're going to hit us with an article that says, oh, by the way, what you just voted in, this is what it's going to cost you. So even if that article gets voted down, Justin, we still have to pay for that. So that's a problem for me, first of all. I don't understand, again, why we're doing 2027, because all I've been hearing is it's in place. It's there. It's empty chairs. Second question, I believe in kindergarten you always need to have a second body there. Meaning if you have a full classroom, you have a teacher, you should have a para with you at least. Are those paras covered for in this?
The district currently maintains regular education paras in
Correct.
each of its kindergarten classrooms currently.
Currently. So if we don't have to add any classes is what you're telling us.
Correct.
Okay. So what happens if you get a bigger number than you thought, and now we lowered the classroom numbers, and now you have to add another teacher and another para?
We feel like we can accommodate, we're currently at around 230. We can accommodate up to 280 in the current circumstances before we would need to look at additional staffing.
Okay. Now I want to get to, how much do you think TLC costs us a year? The building, the teachers, the heat, the electric, the repairs, whatever it is.
I wouldn't begin to guess off the top of my head.
Okay. It definitely isn't $700,000, because that's not even going to cover the PPF working in there. We're already subsidizing kindergarten and pre-K without a yes vote. We're already doing it. So let's be honest about it. We already have that built into the budget without the voters' knowledge, without the voters saying, okay. That's happening right now. At least in Sandown, it's happening. Because there's no way $6,500 a kid in full-time kindergarten and $2,100 is paying for that building. Just not happening. So we are already subsidizing full-time kindergarten. My other comment is, did you guys ever think that maybe these young people can't afford this because their taxes just went up $500 a month? And now they're strapped and they wanted to do full-time kindergarten, and then there you go.
Jack, and then I'll let the next speaker.
I think if we're already subsidizing it, then why not take advantage of it? All we end up with is a better end product. I hate to say it's a product, but
Hey, we're not-
No, I'm just saying, if you said we're already doing it, Sheila, that's what I said. The other thing I think that's important to realize, do it for selfish reasons, support this for selfish reasons. Your property is worth more, a lot more, if there's kindergarten in the community. The first thing people do when they're moving into a community is look at the educational system, right? The more we can do to advance education in our district, the more your house is worth. Look at Exeter, look at Bedford, look at those towns. Those houses are a premium. It's just another thing to consider.
Next speaker.
John Downing. Let's do it right then, Jack. The Articles of Agreement do not cover kindergarten. We are currently supporting and financing kindergarten as it sits right now. I'm kind of confused where we can sit here and say this, what's proposed, is $0 to the taxpayer in this proposed warrant article. In the same breath tonight on this panel, you're saying there is a cost. No cost is a cost. Same meeting, same people.
No,
Is
nobody's
it one
saying-
or the other?
Jack,
Nobody's
let him
saying
finish
that.
speaking.
Well, he asked
No,
me.
no, let him finish
whatever.
speaking.
Is there a cost or not a cost? And why are we putting a zero-cost article up here that will dictate we have to pay it? Just like Sheila brought up, we will have to pay a king's ransom, whatever it costs, when and if this passes, without knowing the price tag.
Because all this warrant article does is change the Articles of Agreement. That's all it does.
You are completely disingenuous if you really want to keep talking like that. Completely disingenuous. It will cost money, and by sitting here and saying it won't is a complete lie.
We're not lying. This warrant article, all it does is change the Articles of Agreement. Yes, there will be a cost, but that's all this warrant article is doing, is changing the Articles of Agreement. That's all it's doing. Mark?
And if I may, disingenuous is a very interesting choice of words here. It's been stated several times by people in the audience, including yourself, that you're supportive of education. Less than 45 minutes ago, you actually stated that, yes, you acknowledge that there would be a benefit to children being in kindergarten. You stated that. It's on the record. And Sheila brought up some points about subsidizing the part-day kindergarten. I would suggest that we also subsidize our libraries, our police departments, our fire departments. This building right here that we're sitting, the middle school and the high school, that is what education is. It's for the benefit of the community. You've acknowledged that there is a benefit to kids going to kindergarten. It seems as if now, despite the earlier pro-education stance, that you're suggesting we shouldn't even be supporting part-day kindergarten. That's not the direction this board feels it should be going. Your voice has certainly been heard loud and clear through the clouder.
Next speaker.
So I know there's some confusion about this updating the Articles of Agreement. The way I see it personally, if people are into looking into the history of things, there's already been a warrant article that passed years ago that approved kindergarten within this district. That's why people are paying for it. So I don't really understand why people couldn't figure that one out. But in terms of subsidizing the cost of kindergarten students, I believe Mr. Krieger already explained this before. If we were to identify students, whether enrolled or not, we would then be paying for their services if they were identified for needing those services. So we'd be federally required to do so. And if I may, they possibly might be state required as well.
They're both federal and state requirements.
Right. So, I mean, we're going to have multiple students every year who are going to be paid for by the district, whether or not we agree to it or not. I just don't understand the confusion.
Next speaker.
Here, Michael. First of all, full-time kindergarten has never passed in this district. Let's be clear, has not. That's why the warrant article is up now. It has not passed. We're mandated to give half-day kindergarten by the state. We never pass full-time kindergarten. But my question is this. I guess we're putting the cart before the horse here, because what I don't understand is this, and maybe you should call legal on this, because this is a good question. If this district approves full-time kindergarten by a majority rule, 2/3 vote, I think we are legally binding to any warrant article that comes after this in any year that pertains to full-time kindergarten and monies in need. You cannot vote down the money once you have put full-time kindergarten on the books. You have to pay for it. You have no choice. So I would ask that you check on legal with that, because I believe that's the case. Once you put it in, you got to pay for it. It's not a yes or no answer. It's a yes answer. You have no choice. You have to pay for it.
Duly noted. Next speaker, and do we have a new one? If you let him speak first, thank you.
Hey, Bob Kincaid, Plastow. A couple of questions and clarifications. I'll just spit them out first, and then if you could just reply to each of them. First, I think, was for Mr. Sherwood. You said that we're one of 4 districts not currently offering tuition-free full K. How many districts are there in New Hampshire?
Greater than 90? I thought it was like 90, I thought it was 90, 97.
So that was one question. Next question was for, I think, Superintendent Krieger. I heard you say we're accommodating 230 kindergarten students. We could accommodate up to 280 without any changes to administration or staff. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. Last question is, does anybody have an approximate breakout of what 307,000 is for an average homeowner at an average home cost?
I don't have that information tonight. It's one of the pieces of information that we will prepare for the deliberative session to present.
Okay, thanks.
We may actually, I know that that had come across my computer. I think Doc is looking for it.
We have 160 school districts in New Hampshire.
Give or take.
Give or take, that's the number.
Just real quick additional point. So I know there's some people who are saying that, some families can afford the $500 increase to their property taxes. And obviously that means they can't afford a full-day kindergarten here within the district because that's the cost of tuition per month. But for those of you who don't know, private kindergarten would cost $500 a week. The fact that there's some people or some families within this district who can't even afford what the school district's offering is showing you how dire the situation is for some families. And to have that inequity exist for really no apparent reason, it's not beneficial to the district whatsoever. It actually costs the district more to continue having this inefficient system.
Jack. Jack.
No.
No,
This is serious.
Look. We're not going, this is about this warrant. We're not discussing to people. All right, then let's.
Do you support full-time kindergarten? I understand you're trying to figure out the financials. I get that. I respect it more than you know.
Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, I would. That's why I
paid
asked the
for
question.
Full-time kindergarten was important to me, and I paid for it. My kids are 30 and 25. I paid for private kindergarten. There was no kindergarten when my kids were little. You had to go private. You had no choice.
But you found value in it.
That was my choice, yes.
Right. And
But what you're not getting, though, Jack, is that I did that. I worked the overtime. I made sure my kids got full-time kindergarten. That's what I did. Because that was my choice.
okay.
Okay? Every one of us have done it here.
And you were in a position to be able to do that, though.
I was a brand-new homeowner up here in lovely New Hampshire, coming from Massachusetts, Woody.
Right.
And that was my choice. There was no kindergarten. You had Playmates, you had Hampstead Village Preschool, you had Le Petit Mayon, you had the privates. That's all we had.
I understand.
So for me, and I hate to sound this way, but we didn't even get the half-day kindergarten. We didn't get the preschool. We didn't get any of that. We had to pay the top dollar, $500 a week, to get whatever it was back then, to get full-time kindergarten.
So
That's the way it was.
All right.
But
so-
my
I have
point.
2 other points.
No, you're done. Do you have another question about the warrant article that's being presented?
I do.
Okay.
I would appreciate, I'm going to make a statement again,
Go ahead.
that you check with legal. I'm kind of sad that he's not here tonight because I have a feeling he would agree with me on this, that any monies that are due for full-time kindergarten would be a given. I don't even think it would have to go to warrant article because you just have to figure it into the budget at that point. I just think that we're missing the boat on a couple of things. I do agree with you that there were probably people who wanted their kids in full-time kindergarten, but then their escrow went up $500 a month. and that was the money for the full-time kindergarten. I completely agree with you. But we're at a point here that you're also asking everybody else to keep their taxes up and pay just a little bit more. And sometimes people just can't pay that little bit more, like our elderly on fixed income. It's not just, there are other citizens out there that need the help too. And that's what I want to get across to everybody. We want it for the kids, sure do. But I don't want an elderly person that's living across the street from me not being able to get their meds either. This is the issue. And it's coming to a point where that's what some people out there are doing. And that's not good. That's not good for anybody.
I'm going to let Mr. Krieger.
Sheila, I think I heard two questions, and the first is that to let you know that the board worked extensively with their legal counsel to draft the warrant language that's in front of you. And second, that Mr. O'Shaughnessy will certainly be attending deliberative, and part of his role there is going to help us clarify some of the things we're talking about this evening.
I agree that he helped do this, because it's the same warrant article that came up years ago. I get that. What I'm specifically asking is that once this warrant article passes, does there even have to be another warrant article to raise and appropriate for full-time kindergarten? I don't believe there does. I think it just rolls right into that budget. And it's part of the BudCom and them saying, okay, need another $1 million, and that's how it's going to work. I don't believe you're going to get a chance to get another warrant article with a dollar value on it, because it will already be a done deal.
Mr. O'Shaughnessy will be at the deliberative, so that question can be asked. But Kim?
Make the point that, like I said at the beginning, right now we have the things in place that we need for our kids. We have the teachers that we need. Mr. Krieger said we could have up to 280 kids. We don't have that. We have maybe 203, I think. We have the facilities in place. We have the curriculum in place. We have everything in place that we need to make this happen for our youngest learners, to all start their educational journey on the same field. And so now is the time to change our Articles of Agreement to make that happen.
Next speaker.
Ms. McCormick, you're stating right now we have everything in place, all the curriculum is in place, and we're ready to accept kids. We're told that we need to wait a year to get that stuff in place. Again, same night, same panel, same people. Is it in place or not? And if it's in place, why are we waiting till next year?
Don?
I believe that one of the problems that we ran into here in this process was to find out that actually our Articles of Agreement didn't really allow us to move forward. So we had to bring it to this body this year to get that piece caught up so that we're even current. Our Articles of Agreement don't touch on the fact that we're where we are actually at with kindergarten. And they need to. They need to. So moving forward, once that's done, we can take that next step to full-time kindergarten for the cost that you'd see up there, approximately.
I don't disagree
so
with
you understand that piece?
I understand that.
So I don't see how you can call that disingenuous. I see it as a necessary step. And we talked about why are we here? Why are we doing this now?
we're taking
And
that
why is
step
it not
to-
Let
happening
each
until
other
next
speak,
year?
or I'm going to have the mics cut. So
So
let Mr. Wardworth finish, then Mr. Downey, you can finish.
in order to move forward, we had to pause and get this piece done. And in doing so, we are able to get our kids where they need to be. It's my belief, once we do that, it will actually be a cost savings over time for the work we don't have to do to catch up kids who have been, unfortunately, put in a situation where they're not having the equal start with their classmates that are able to afford full-time right now. And that's where I'm coming from, and I hope you appreciate that, not as being disingenuous, not as trying to pull something over on anybody, but rather trying to do a right thing in a way that's the most transparent that we can envision. We've been doing this, talking to people, going around the district, talking to anybody who would listen. This is about the biggest crowd that we've been able to muster, but I think most people are appreciative of the fact that we're looking out for their kids.
I appreciate the response. I understand where you're coming from. To answer Mr. Sherwood also, yes, I do care about education. I do care about kindergarten. Can be important, yes. We're just asking it's done right.
Legally, we have to do
I
this.
think I get an understanding from you what you're saying, and you know what, I'm going to look further into it. I'm not going to just ignore that. However, it just does not make sense to do it next year.
Yesterday. I mean, we are, it's unfortunate that we can't have that to the degree that we can afford it right now. You know, but I think this is moving forward the only way we could at this point.
Analogies are used often with the school board, so let's just leave with, would you let a contractor come to your home and replace your roof and all the siding without asking what it cost? Would you do that? Would you do that?
Depends on the contractor and what I know.
I've listened to you sincerely.
If you knew,
I'm asking
if you
you.
knew where we're coming from, and you know who we are, and not who you assume we are, you would trust us that what we're going to try to do, we'll be able to afford one way or another. And we're not talking
Sincerely
huge bucks.
asking, would
An
you-
HVAC system, one
Would you, yes or
HVAC
no?
unit costs about what would cost for all these kids to get kindergarten. You know, when you think about breaking it down to what it really costs per student, come on, this is not big money.
It was
Not
a-
the-
it was
Mr. Downing, that's
The
your time.
300,000, the 300,000
Gentlemen,
plus.
please stop, or I'm going to have the mic cut, please.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Downing, that's your time. Next speaker. Anything new on this warrant article?
Yeah, actually, I think they make a very interesting point. I think a lot of people made an interesting point about how much of the cost it's already been paid for by people, taxpayers, and how much they may or may not have been aware of. And I think one of the things that hasn't been touched upon, maybe Mr. Krieger can answer this question, is one, do we have to charge tuition? And two, is there a number that we have to charge legally?
No, we don't need to charge tuition. Excuse me, Michael. And the tuition is set by the school board.
Thank you.
Any new speakers? Any new speakers?
Hi, Paul Freeman, Danville. I'm 3 years here. What you're just telling me is I'm being forced to pay for kindergarten illegally. It's not on, well, first grade to 12th grade, right?
No, you're not being
You're
forced.
telling me right now that I'm paying for kindergarten. It's already there, ready to go.
Half day.
Yeah. It's not a, it's 1 to 12. But then how can we be ready right now to go to full-time?
Because we're currently doing halftime. We have the buildings, we have the buses, we have the teachers,
We're
we
paying
have.
for it.
We have the teachers, we have the paras.
It's words.
It's,
Okay.
okay.
I'm sorry.
We are currently doing it because the state told us to do it for halftime. So we are doing it. So if you're suggesting that we are forcing you, yes, the state has mandated that half-day K be put in place. It is in place. The machinery is in work. The structure is there. What this is about is adopting it or changing it from half-day to full-day. The structure is there. Yes, you are paying for it currently.
Any other new speakers? Anything new, Sheila, on this warrant article?
One question,
Okay?
which I wish Maria was here. Do you really think, and I'm being perfectly honest here, I'm asking an honest question. Do you really think $6,500 a year pays for one child to be educated in kindergarten full-time?
Not the first child, not the second child, not the third, but once you have 20 in the class, it could pay for the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. There's an economy of scale.
I would say that for the other 3 towns, but not Sandown.
Okay.
Not for TLC. But that's my point. We're not doing it in Sandown for $6,500. We're just not.
Okay.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? And I think you may have been leading to something, and I just want to make certain I don't misinterpret. Are you suggesting mothballing Central? You brought it up twice.
I don't think, excuse me, I don't think I said that.
No, I'm asking.
I did not say that, did I? I said.
No, you didn't. That's why I'm
What I
asking.
said was, we get half tuition for I believe the pre-K, correct? No. Do we get something for the pre-K?
I don't think we get anything.
I know we get tuition, $220 a month, but what about from the state?
I do not believe so, but
Okay.
Ms. Kanotis is in the audience, and she may know more than I do.
No, she doesn't know that because it's money.
But we're
And I
not
don't
talking
blame
about,
you. You
we're not
shouldn't.
talking about pre-K, though. We're talking about kindergarten.
No, I understand that.
So
but we
anything
have-
more about this warrant article?
But ma'am, what he's talking about is TLC, and that also has pre-K in TLC. That one building only does
Every
the
building has
babies.
pre-K.
That one building in Sandown only does pre-K and K. That's all they do. There's no other,
It's due to space constrictions, but again, this warrant article is for the district, not just Sandown. Do you have any other questions about this warrant article?
I'm asking Mr. Sherwood, do you understand what I am trying to say to you?
You're suggesting that that building is cost prohibitive to run the programs that are currently in there, is that correct?
What I am saying is that what is being pulled in from the state in tuition does nowhere cover that building. Do you agree?
I would agree that that probably applies to every building we have in the district.
Okay, thank you.
That's why we pay taxes, because the state doesn't cover it.
Understood, but we've got pre-K through 5 in the other buildings. This one's a standalone.
Okay. Again, does anyone have any questions about this warrant article? All right. Thank you. I'm going to close this hearing at 8:03. Have a good evening and see you February 6th.